All right, what's going on, guys? We are now live. So today is going to be the longer Q&A, the Friday Q&As. If you guys are new to the live stream, I usually do one Q&A throughout the week that's a little bit shorter. These are the longer ones, and I just take questions from the week that I got on my social medias and answer them live, and also answer your guys' questions live. So just to get into a couple of the questions I'm going to answer in this live stream. I'm going to talk about one of them that was asked by someone. He asked me, what are some of the key jumping exercises that I've done to increase my vertical? And to be honest, it was hard to give him just a couple because I said like there was a lot. So, but I just gave him a couple, and I'll get into that. And then another question from Cammy Dunks, I believe. He asked me what my highest recorded touch was. And if you guys saw my Instagram, I posted what my highest touch was. I've also posted it in past workout videos, getting the highest touch I've recorded. So I'll talk about that. And then another question from somebody on my Instagram. I'll bring his name up really quick. He was just asking me what's the best way, or like what's the best way to get your first dunk in terms of like, you know, self lob, having somebody toss it to you, or trying it off the dribble. There, he was just asking me like what's the best way to go if you're trying to get your first dunk. And honestly, there could be a lot of different ways to do it, but I kind of gave him some of my advice on it and like what I did to get my first dunk. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into the first question. I'm gonna bring up who asked it really quick. And if you guys have any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll definitely answer them. I got another one from Thomas. I'm just gonna answer this one really quick because he asked me what my standing reach was, and I've answered this one in past Q&As, but my standing reach is 7.5, 7.4. So yeah, that's my standing reach. Let's see. Let's see if I can find his name. So I just like to give like people little shout outs if they ask me questions. If I can't find it. Okay, well, if I find it, I will definitely give him a shout out. But yeah, he was just asking me like what some of the key jumping exercises I've done to get to the point I'm at now, and it was just hard to answer that because okay, here we go. Ian, Araujo. He asked me, yeah, can you list some of the key exercises that gave you the vertical you have? So I'm not going to say that any one or two or three exercises gave me the vertical I have. You know, I've talked about this before too. It's just I feel like with vertical jumping and any type of like, you know, with any type of movement like that, it's just going to be a combination of past things that you've done in terms of like playing sports, past workout routines, past, you know, lifting experience, speed training, all that stuff. So I kind of just gave him a couple of the exercises that I did or that I referred to the most probably in any of my vertical jump training, and those were squats and probably depth jumps or just some type of like speed movement or sprinting. But I mean, for the plyometric exercise, honestly, above like both of those would just be practicing jumping. Like that's probably the most important plyometric exercise aside from, you know, the loaded exercise of squats that I ever did for jump training. So those were a couple of the key exercises that I've done. And sorry if the laptop is kind of moving, but I have it on my legs right now. The Black Mom said, I'm 5'7" and can touch the bottom of the rim, but inconsistently. Okay, the Black Mamba. How often do you jump at the rim? Or how often do you try to touch it? Because I mean, consistency is like it was probably the biggest thing with any type of training, but I mean, I feel like it's really important for vertical jump training because it's just if you take an extended time off, you know, your timing can be off, your technique can be off. And I mean, I just realized that with the dunk sessions I did, yeah, I've just been focusing on kind of like weight training and not like just weight training, but training in general. And I hadn't done like a dunk session in a while. So when I went back to it, I felt like my timing was kind of off, and I just feel like I have to do more of them again to kind of just get back into it. But inconsistently, I would say to just keep trying to keep jumping consistently, number one, and then start to try and reach for something that you can't reach yet. That's probably like the best advice. I mean, I think I got that from Steven Selly. If you guys have heard of him, he gave me that advice. And I mean, it's kind of like common sense. You know, if you're trying to touch a point that you can't reach yet, try to touch something that's higher than that point. So that way that maybe that point that you're touching inconsistently right now, you'll start to actually get it consistently. The Black Mountain said, I try to touch about 20 to 30 times a day when training. Okay, so I mean, if you're trying to touch it that much, then maybe it's almost too much. So if you've been doing it consistently or every day even, then take a little bit of a break from it, go back to it in like maybe a couple days, try it with fresh legs and from taking some time off from training or just jumping and see how you feel jumping then. Or trying to work on mobility. If you haven't worked on mobility or any type of like foam rolling or anything, you can try that. But again, the most important thing would be to just try to reach for something that's out of the reach of that point, and maybe it's just kind of like by accident or by coincidence that you start to touch something or get a dunk or whatever consistently. It just takes that 1, 2, 3 times, and then it's just you start to get more consistent with it. So I would just say to just keep practicing with it, and I feel like you'll get it. But yeah, so to answer Cammy's question about the highest recorded touch I've ever had, it was it's like 10-8, 10-9, which was it's from like a metal bar that holds a punching bag at my gym. So I just measured that out and then went for that. I've touched it like 2 times, I think, out of it's been like 2 out of probably 15 tries total. So gonna work on getting more consistent with that, just like you are gonna try to get more consistent with touching the bottom of the rim, the Black Mamba. So yeah, just got to keep doing it more, and I'll get more consistent with it. But yeah, right now that's just my goal, is like to keep reaching for something that's outside of my reach right now, so that way I can start to get more consistent with, maybe touching that 10-8, 10-9 bar at the gym. So just gonna keep working with that. And then I think this was from the gentleman, I believe. Wait, CAC Vogel 187. What do you think of jump manual? I do it right now, but I feel once a week plyos and once a week strength is not enough. So I have never done the jump manual, or I've never, I mean, I've heard about it, but I've never like looked into it at all. So that's the first time of me hearing that it's once a week plyos and once a week strength. Is there like a beginner program? Like, is that in the beginner phase, or is that just how it is like throughout? And you said, I usually prefer twice a week plyos and strength combined and a little plyos on upper body days. What do you think about that? So to answer that plyo question, so with like the plyometric stuff I looked into with past Q&A, like a past Q&A I talked about, a lot of the studies actually said that you should give like a sufficient amount of time between doing plyometric exercise, and you shouldn't go over like 4 to 5 reps if you're going to work with it. If you're working with like depth jumps or drop jumps or something like that. So I mean, I would say that it's good to spread out plyometrics like pretty far in between. Like I usually only do it, I mean, I guess not to say like true plyometrics, but I do a plyometric workout only probably like once in between my lifting splits. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not bad to only do once a week plyos, but I mean, because if you're sprinting or if you're jumping, outside of that those are also plyometric movements. So I mean, if you're doing all that with your lifting, then you're still doing plyometrics, even if you're not, making it a whole workout. And the Black Mama said, "Do you have certain shoes you wear when you dunk?" Yeah, I do actually. So I have the Adidas. I have 2 pairs of basketball shoes actually. One of them my girlfriend got me. So aside from those, I have the Adidas Crazy Light Boost 2016s, which those I wear when I play basketball, and then I have the Nike. I think they're called like crossovers or something like that. They have like it's like it has some ankle support, like the Crazy Light Boost 2016s. They're a low top shoe, and then the Nike ones are a little bit higher top with some more ankle support. So I like to wear those, even though it's a little bit of a lighter shoe. But I mean, I like to wear a lighter shoe when I'm dunking. So those are actually lighter than the Crazy Light Boost. So I wear those when I dunk, and it gives a little bit more support. So it feels better on my foot than dunking in the Crazy Light Boost. Cac Vogel said it's like what for the whole time. Oh, is the whole jump manual like, is it always, does it get harder from there? Like, is it more than once a week plyos and once a week strength, or is that how the whole program is? Like, is it just that way for like the time that you're or for the phase that you're in right now, or does it change? But yeah, I'm gonna look up who asked me how to make the first dunk. I think it was his name is Gentleman G3, I think it is. Yeah, he said he's just want to say that he tried dunking with a mini ball, but he hadn't made it yet. So what do you think is better way to make your first dunk, lob off the backboard, etc.? So The way I got my first dunk was actually, so I don't consider this like my first dunk because I just consider it more of like a tip in, but somebody actually tossed me the ball just right in front of the rim and I just kind of put my hand up and just like punched it in. So that was actually like my first dunk, but I don't talk about that one as being my first dunk. I talk about one that I just kind of threw it up as a self lob and brought it back a little bit and actually threw it in. So I mean, either one of those, but I feel like if you're trying to just get your first dunk down and actually like just see it go in, having somebody just like toss it right in front of the rim would be the best. I feel like would be the best way to go and the easiest way to get your first dunk if you just want to, get that confidence and see an actual dunk go in for the first time. But I mean, it's just, or I mean, even if you're working with a small ball, like I didn't work with a small ball that much, which is kind of surprising because I feel like it's kind of common, like common advice is to work with a small ball like off the dribble or just trying to dunk with a small ball before you start to work with a bigger ball. But I always worked with just like a regulation ball until it got easier. And then, I mean, I did some stuff at the gym with like a medicine ball, just like jumping with that, like jumping with a medicine ball, like over a pole that was maybe like 7, 8 feet. So just something like that I did before, but nothing in terms of like practicing with a smaller ball on a low rim. But now, I mean, in terms of like getting better at dunking on a 10 foot, I go back to low rim to like do some more tricks of like work on windmills and like 360 or something like that. Mustafa said, with weight and body weight jump exercises, which is better, you think? So I think body weight jumping is better because it's going to be the way that you're actually going to jump when you are performing. When you're dunking or when you're um, like when you're doing any type of jumping exercise and like more of like a real life situation, I guess you could call it, like outside of training. But if you're going to train with weight, from like the research I've looked into and the studies I've read, that you should train with a weight that's about like 30% of like the max weight you would do. So if you're going to jump with like if you're going to do jump squats with a barbell on your back, then you should have that weight be about 30% of like what your max squat is. So that way you can still be fast with the weight. So it's kind of like, so you're still kind of mimicking the same movement as you would be if you were jumping without weight, like, just your body weight, but you're applying weight to the movement still. So the idea is that you'll be able to apply more power with the weight, um, but not to have the weight be so heavy that you're actually doing the movement slow, like slow the whole time. So yeah, I think body weight jumping is great in terms of if you want to like get your timing down, get your footwork down, your technique, because that's gonna be the way you jump when you're actually practicing dunking or jumping, outside or on the court or whatever. You're not gonna have weight in your hand, but in terms of like getting more powerful and stronger, then jumping with weight would be better or would be helpful too. But yeah, Cac Vogel, if you're still here, I was just talking about like is the jump manual, like does it change from the once a week plyos, once a week strength, or does it stay that way the whole time? And the black mom, I was curious, what shoes you wear to dunk? Because I mean, I've heard of like different shoes, like the shoes don't matter, but I mean, to me, I feel like the shoes definitely matter if you're um I don't know, I feel like the shoes just definitely matter in general in terms of like dunking or jumping. Like you feel different in different shoes, obviously. So I feel like jumping with a lighter shoe that has a little bit of support is like the best way, or like is one of my favorite shoes to go to for dunking. So, but in terms of working out, like I honestly just like to work out barefoot if I could get away with it. So honestly, when I work out, I just try to wear no shoes. I want to see if I have any more questions here. Cac Vogel said, jump manual doesn't change. You get a 2 week plan and repeat it. No different stages or phases. Respect to what you're doing. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I mean, I respect what you're doing too. If you're being consistent with your workouts and trying to reach a goal you haven't reached yet. I mean, I respect that too. He said, I'm on the same grind, just no YouTube. I mean, the YouTube is to track the progress and help you guys and just share the journey pretty much. So, and get to meet different people and talk to you guys on here. So, I mean, if you're just taking videos of yourself to see your progress, I mean, that's cool too. It's just, I would definitely advise taking videos just to see the progress and just see, that you're actually progressing in what you're doing. Um, but I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I feel like I didn't know that about the jump manual, that it's only a 2-week plan and you just repeat it. But I mean, honestly, the 1-in-1 that could work if, as long as you're progressing like with the weight and you're, you know, really putting in a lot of effort with the plyometrics and you're just really focusing in on the workouts. I mean, if you think about like maybe the theory behind that might be that, maybe they think that if you're doing the jump manual, you're also playing sports, or you're doing something outside of the jump manual. So maybe it's just to kind of prevent overtraining, so that way you have some type of rest time in between when you train. So I mean, maybe that's why it seems like it's so little. But I mean, if you feel like you could do more, then maybe add in another lift day or something. But if you feel like those rest days are worth it in terms of your recovery, and if you've been seeing results, then I mean, stick to that. Have you been seeing results from the 1-in-1? Joshua said, "What did you do when you plateaued in your progression to dunking?" Um, that's kind of an interesting question, because there was a point when, so I did the flight rep program, right? And I got my first dunk after 7 months of that. But soon after that is when I kind of started to plateau. And like within that time, I was also playing like intramural basketball at my college, and I broke my elbow, and that like set me out for like 5 months. And I honestly, I'm like mad at myself, but not mad at myself, but from looking back on it. But I could have been doing some type of like leg training or whatever. Like I still had my legs, I just didn't have my arm. Um, to like hold weight or anything. But that is when I plateaued probably the most with jumping, was at that point. And that's when I started to just say, I'm not going to go back to the flight rep program, because now I feel like I've had all this time off. Now I just feel like I need to do something more. So that's when I started to like do research. I started to kind of figure out, what can I do when I get back from this elbow, like breaking my elbow. What can I do when I get back to just really um, put in more work, and like put in a whole new routine. Like what could I do to keep getting better? So I mean, from there, it was just doing my own research and finding out like what's the best things to do to improve your vertical. So I mean, there wasn't like one specific thing. It was just starting to research more. I mean, it's like the stuff I talk about with the Q&As, the Q&A prior to this during the week. Like that's the type of stuff I look into, or that's the type of stuff I've looked into. Like none of that stuff is old that I talk about in the Q&As. That's something I looked up, recently, so I can talk about it with you guys and also kind of share like, not like my opinion, but kind of what I took away from it. So none of that stuff is like old information. It's what I'm learning right now. So yeah, I mean, that's what I do to kind of avoid plateaus, I guess, Joshua, you could say, is just like looking into that type of stuff, so that way I could just keep learning and kind of have a broad scope. If one thing starts to feel like I'm getting too comfortable with it, then I'll just, I'll reach out to something else and try that, and see if it works. The Black Mama said, I wear the Curry one because I like the padding. Oh, that's good. I mean, that's good, because like for me, like with the shoe, like I said, I care more like about I mean, the traction's really important too. I didn't talk about that, but yeah, just the lightness of it. But I mean, yeah, padding's definitely important too, especially if you're playing like on a hard surface, like outside or something. Mustafa said, I'm 5'7" and 16 years old. I doubt about weight exercises. Okay, I think you mean what weight exercises can you do? He said, I'm 5'7", 16 years old. I doubt about weight exercises should I do. Ruben said, why am I so inconsistent? One day I can hang on the rim, the other day I can't even touch it. Well, okay, so I mean, Ruben, you have to kind of look at your whole routine. So, on those days that you're hanging on the rim, think about what you did, if you worked out recently, if you play basketball or if you play sports, the stuff you did the day before, the stuff you did the day of, I mean, sleep, um, energy levels, nutrition. I mean, just like look at all that, on those days that you can hang on the rim, I mean, or days that you can't even touch it. I mean, also it could be just technique. It could be adrenaline. I mean, I don't really know like the situations you've been in when you have hung on the rim. If you want to talk about that, I could get more into it. But because I mean, I've noticed that when I'm in front of people, like when there's more people around, I jump higher. Like I feel like I have more adrenaline, so I just feel like I could jump. I feel like I could jump easier. So I mean, maybe if you've hung on the rim when there's people around, that could be a reason why. Um, but yeah, I mean, just kind of think about what situations were you in when you were hanging on the rim, like what happened the day before, or the day of, or yeah, just stuff like that. And Nathaniel said, what key jump exercises have I missed? So I just talked about two because I've talked about it in previous Q&As that there's a lot that I can name, but in terms of the key jump exercises, they would be just squatting, like full squatting or box squatting, which I've been doing lately. But in terms of plyometric exercises like depth jumps or like sprinting or just like some type of exercise like that. Hi. Yeah, those are the type of exercises that I've been talking about, but you haven't missed anything really. And Mustafa said, I mean, bad effects on height. So you mean like what exercises can have a bad effect on your height? Okay, so I mean, if you're talking about what type of exercise can have a bad effect on your height, all right, sorry, last question. Do you mean jump height or like physical height? Like how tall you are? I think Hackvogel said Jordan 29. I mean, I guess those answer both ways. If you're talking about like actual physical like height, like how tall you are, then I mean that doesn't matter. I mean, there's never been like any scientific evidence that has shown like lifting weights can affect your growth or anything. But if you're talking about jump height, then if you're doing, I feel like if you're doing over, I wouldn't say over the 30% threshold, but if you're trying to do like jumping exercises with something that's like 70% of your max, then that might hinder or take away from like what you're trying to gain with doing weighted jump exercises. So yeah, I mean, I would just say if you stick to like that 30% max, if you're trying to do weighted exercises with jumping, and that'd probably be the best way to go. I mean, that's like what that review study I talked about before. Like that's what that whole review is talking about, is like to stick in the 30 to 50% of your max range if you want to try to do, um, if you want to try to work on your jumping with weight. Joshua said probably worried about stunting his height. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he just said it. The Black Mamba, should I keep doing drills with ankle weights? So ankle weights are kind of tricky. I mean, I worked with ankle weights before, and I never found anything like any real benefits from them. The only time I really use ankle weights is if I'm doing foot speed drills. But in terms of like doing them with, I mean, I guess you could do them with like core work too. But if you're trying to do like jumping or anything with them, I feel like those can have more of a negative effect than helpful. But I mean, if you've been finding that they help, then I mean, stick with them. But really with wearing ankle weights, I feel like that's more of like a foot. I only wore them for like foot speed. So I do them with like jump roping, or you could try them with ladders or something like that. Um, but I don't wear them with like working out or anything. So I mean, yeah, it's up to you. If you've been finding that they're helpful, just stick with them. But if not, um, like I said, I recommend them more for like foot speed drills, like jump roping or ladders or something like that. Mustafa said, "Yeah, I read in the journal that says lifting weights affects bad on growing height." So I've never read anything that says that. I've actually read like the opposite of that. But if you want, I could do a Q&A, like I could do a Q&A on that topic, or I can incorporate it into the next Q&A I do, like the one I do throughout the week. That's like on a special topic. I could look into that because I feel like that'd be kind of interesting if you've actually read something that says that it can affect your growth, because like I said, I've never read anything that says it would affect your, or that it would stunt your growth, if that's what you've read. Do you remember what journal it was in? Joshua said, you think you could increase your vert by just jumping and trying to reach something you can't? I feel like that'd be a good thing to that'd be like a good theory to test. But okay, so I feel like you could increase your vertical by trying to touch something that you can't. Like I feel like that's definitely possible, but I feel like for the long term, if you want to, you know, extend that jumping window, like if you want to continue to if you want to continue to like push the boundaries and, you know, maybe get to a certain point a little bit faster, then that's where incorporating weight training and incorporating like actual jump training can help. But that's not to say that, you know, just jumping for something that you can't help, or that it can't, you know, you can't actually increase your vertical by just doing that. But that would definitely be an interesting theory to test. I mean, I incorporate that into like my actual training. Like I'll try to touch something that I can't reach, and then I'll work out or I'll train, and then I'll go back to it and try to touch it again. But I've never just done it where I've just tried to reach something I can't. But that's not to say that it can't work either, or that it can't be like an effective training method. The Black Mama, how much weight should I lift if I'm 13 years young? um, Honestly, body weight. Body weight's probably like one of the, if you're 13 years old and you haven't done any like type of, you know, your body's still growing, like if you haven't done any type of weightlifting exercises, then just body weight exercise would be, you know, great to start to incorporate, like body weight squats, jump squats. You could do bounding, you could do you know, you could do just sprints, you could do single leg sprints, you could do gallops, just there's a bunch of different stuff you could do. You could do like for even like frog hops or burpees or just stuff like that. Um, I feel like though that's a great way to start, is just body weight exercises, pull ups, push ups, all that stuff. You know, start to get strong, start to get coordinated with your body as it is right now, and then later on down the line as you get stronger, then start to incorporate the weight. Jordan said, your thoughts on triphasic training. Um, Jordan, if you want to elaborate on that, I've heard the phrase, and I'm sure somebody's told me about it before, what the triphasic training is, but I'll look it up right now. Just kind of refresh. Triphasic training. Okay, yeah, is the principle of sports performance training created out of a revelation I had to, okay. Yeah, I've actually never looked into, like I said, I've heard the term, but now that you told me that, that might be another Q&A. Jordan, look for another Q&A on the triphasic training, because I right now I'm in like a contrast training phase, because I looked into that a lot, and then I started to do that, and I've been finding that contrast training has been beneficial for me, so I've been doing that. But I'll look into the triphasic training, because it seems like what I just read in the little the stuff that came up when I searched it seemed pretty interesting. The Black Mama's upper arm strength, something I have to improve to dunk. Not in my opinion, like not in my experience either. I mean, I feel like for dunking and for jumping, it's important to know how to use your body as like one continuous chain. You know, it's not necessarily like saying, you know, I need to do bicep curls or I need to do leg curls even. It's just about knowing how to use your body as a whole unit and being coordinated with it as a unit. Because, you know, when you're jumping, everything you're jumping with your whole body. It's not just your arms, it's not just your legs, it's your whole body. So that's why I feel like it's not that important to improve your upper arm strength, like singly. I mean, but if you're improving your whole, like if you're doing whole body workouts, or if you're doing stuff to strengthen your body as a whole, then you know you're going to be strengthening your upper arms anyway. So that's just kind of my take on it.
Get in the fridge. Yeah, I gotta go to the
Joshua said, so when incorporating weights, should it be heavy lifting or moderate weight but exploding with it? Okay, so that's a good question, Joshua, because I've been asked about that, and I've seen I've seen mixed things with it. So I feel like the best that's why I'm so interested in contrast training right now, because it incorporates both. So there's this theory that when you do a heavy loaded lift, your muscles have like this post activation potential. Um, which means that you could do an exercise like with moderate weight. So I'm just gonna use the example is like you can do a loaded squat with say 80 to 90% of your max, and then you can do a jump squat with 30% of that with 30% of your max, and you'll be more powerful doing that jump squat because you have just um because you've just done that heavy load beforehand. So that's kind of like the theory behind contrast training with the PAP. It's called if you want to look it up, but that's just kind of the theory behind it. Um, but I don't think one is better, or I don't think you should. I was reading your question. I don't think you should necessarily say you should do one or should do the other. I think incorporating both is good. Um, but I think they just work different things. So in terms of force and like how much force you're applying to the ground, that would be more of loading, like doing heavy movements, whereas when you're doing moderate weight, that's more of a power movement. So like Olympic lifting, that's why Olympic lifting, um, like one of the articles I was reading, it was talking about how Olympic lifting is actually more should actually be called powerlifting, because it's actually about moving a weight faster, which which then you'd be incorporating more of like a moderate weight. Whereas with powerlifting, as it is called now, it's actually more of like force lifting. So it's not about how fast you're doing a movement, but about how much weight you're actually doing. So to kind of summarize, I guess if you want to do moderate weight, then you're going to be able to do that moderate weight faster, which means that is going to be a more powerful movement. So that's the benefit of that. But if you're going to do a heavy weight, then you're going to be applying more force to the ground, which means you're going to be getting stronger in that way from doing heavy lifting or heavy loads. Nathaniel said, "Do I count my macros?" Yes, I count my macros. I use my Fitness Pal. Um, I mean, nothing like super strict. I'm not like super picky. Like I just make sure I stay in the range of like what I'm eating, and kind of more like I don't measure out every single gram of food or like anything crazy like that. I just keep track of what I'm eating to make sure I'm not like overeating or undereating. Nathaniel said, "What percentage do you follow for your macros?" I think right now my macros are around 50 carb, 50, what is it? I could look actually. I think it might be more like 40, 30, 40, 40, 20. Let me look. So right now it's 50% carb, 30% fat, and 20% protein. But more of the time I'll be flipping the fat and the protein. So I'll be getting more like 30% protein, 20% fat, 50% carb. And Joshua said, "What's your training split?" Oh, wait one second. Joshua said, "What's your training split?" I'm curious. So my training split right now is like right now I'll do a contrast training. Usually I'll do like two. Since I've been doing the contrast training, I'll do two workouts like that, and then I'll do like a plyometric workout after a rest day, and then go back to the like the contrast type of training. So it's like a 2-2-1-2 with the one being the plyometric day. Or I might take if I know I'm gonna like do a dunk session or something, I might take like a little bit longer in between like the workout, so I have more rest time before dunking. There's not like a strict split that I stick to all the time. It's just more of, like I said, I go more of off of like how I feel. Like if I feel like I need to take another rest day, or if I feel like if I want to prepare more for dunking or jumping or something, then I'll take another rest day. But I don't stick to like a super strict split. I actually just watched an overtime athlete video on like a vertical jump split, and he was talking about how he was or how it was like he had like a lower body heavy day and then like an upper body and then a rest day and then a lower I think it was. But I don't stick to like anything like strict like that. Like I said, I feel like it's probably it's for me it's one of the better ways to do it because I'm not like, okay, I need to do this today and then I need to do this tomorrow. Like I just go off of, if if I know I'm gonna put in 100% effort with training today, then I'm gonna do that. If I feel like I could put in 100% effort with dunking today, then I'm gonna do that. Or if I feel like I could take another rest day to have a better training day the next day, then I'll do that. It's just it just all depends. Nathaniel said, your thoughts on periodization. Would you recommend working on strength, power, and speed in separate periods, or work on all three in each session? Um, so I actually came off like a periodization training type of workout with this program called Easy Strength, and it was basically like you did 10. It was like 10 days, but it was like a 14-day like training span, and then there was like a deload week, and you did that for a week, and then so that was like more of like the speed phase. So it'd be like strength, speed. But I guess it wasn't like a full periodization. But I've never done them, or I've never done it. But I have like read about it. I guess it. I mean, it's all. I feel like there's no one way to train that. Like I feel like there's no one right way to train. So if you want to do periodization, then do periodization. If you want to do contrast, then do contrast. With like I talked about this before too. Like I feel like your body doesn't know like what type of training you're doing. It's just going to adapt to whatever you're putting it through. So if you're going to do periodization, then your body's going to adapt to what you're doing with that. I mean, you can just mix up workouts. Like that's what I've been doing more or less, Joshua. That's why I said like I don't really have a don't really have a strict split because I've been kind of not like playing with, but I've been doing different type of workouts. I've been doing different type of exercises to challenge my body in ways that I haven't yet. I did like that dead beach workout on the dunes. I've done a hill workout. So I mean, just doing different type of workouts like that, where I'm pushing my body in different ways. That's kind of like more or less what I'm going for. Not trying to stick to a specific program. Even though, like I said, even though it might work. I mean, maybe I didn't say it, but even though like doing a program, could work and could be beneficial. I mean, then do it and see what results you get from it. But right now, this is just what I'm doing. So maybe the next step after this type of phase that I'm in, maybe I'll try like a periodization or I'll look into that triphasic training. Kakvola said, do you play on a team? If yes, which position? How do you get to do in-game dunks? So I don't play on a team right now. I play intramurals my freshman year of college, but then after breaking my elbow, I just kind of put that aside. So I don't play on a team, but when I did in high school, I played shooting guard, so that's like a 2. But I got that one in-game dunk from just like a fast break. That was like just rec playing at an LA Fitness. I got that on a fast break. And Kakvo said, "Overtime Athletes is great. You should check all his jumping videos." Yeah, I actually have like I've watched his playlist. Like I've watched multiple videos in that playlist of him getting to his 44-inch vertical. He's probably the first. That's probably where one of the first videos I've watched, like box squats for vertical jumping. So, or like med ball throws. Like I've watched his videos on that. Jordan Lambert, Overtime Athletes is where I found out about triphasic training. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I'll look up his videos on that. But that might be the next Q&A I do if I don't, or like I'll incorporate the triphasic training. I'll look up the triphasic training and also the what else was asked about? And the if working out actually can stunt your growth. Kakvo said, how often do you deload? How many rest days a week? So when I was doing that the strength program by Dan John, I did deload I think it was 14 days, and then you would deload for like 4 or 5 days. So yeah, it's like every 14. But then but right now I don't do any deloading. I just do like the contrast training is, I mean, not to say that it's like incorporated, but you're doing a loaded and then you're also doing like a kind of like a deloaded movement because you're doing body weight and then you're also doing 30% max. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I probably rest like 2 days a week. If you're talking about rest, like not lifting, then 2 days a week. But if you're saying like rest in terms of like just not training or not jumping or not running, then maybe one. I mean, it's like it's hard for me to just like taking a complete day off from doing anything. So yeah, it'd be like how many days? Joshua said, my friend is 5'5" and he can touch the rim and he didn't do any jump program or weight training. How is that possible? He is pretty fast though. Is that why I squat more than him and he can only graze the rim? So that's that. I mean, that could be genetics. Like I know that's kind of like not like an easy way, not an easy way out, but I mean, it's kind of an easy answer, I guess. But something I've looked into before, Joshua, is like fascia. And if you look at Chung Zai on YouTube, he's talked a lot about like fascia and like how, different athletes by like their structure and like how they jump and stuff, you can kind of tell which ones have more like fascia, like or have more connection to their glutes and stuff from their feet. So it could be that, or it could be a lot of genetics or like how he grew up. Like if he grew up, playing on hard surfaces or something, or if he was just jumping a lot or playing sports. Do you know if he did that? Nathaniel said, you have morning routine or like breakfast routine that you follow. So Nathaniel, like I like to start off every morning like drinking water. Like I won't put any food in my mouth before I drink some amount of water, and then after that I'll do like I usually have eggs, either like scrambled egg whites or like 2 eggs, and then some type of carb. And Gardy said, is it possible for me to touch rim at 5'3"? I don't like to put any limits on anyone, so it could definitely be possible if you stay consistent, if you work at it. So, I mean, I would love to see you get it if you're 5'3", but yeah, I don't like to say anything's not possible on this channel. So, Joshua, yeah, I was thinking genetics too. LOL, he loved playing basketball outside at school every day. So, I mean, yeah, I mean that could be. He could have been, he could have been subconsciously training jumping. He could have, been training the technique ever since he was younger. If he was, especially if he was playing outside, like he could have gotten, his body could have adapted like playing on a hard surface like that. So maybe that's why he's just like a freak jumper. But yeah, I mean, I've seen guys like that too, where it seems like they've done no type of training or anything and they could just jump super high. But I mean, like I said, that's why I feel like when I was asked about the key jumping exercises, it's hard to just say that there are any key jumping exercises that help me get to the point I am now. It's just more of like everything that has led up to this point. Everything I've done that's led up to this point. In terms of like, playing basketball from when I was younger to, playing outside or Joshua said makes sense because we always try to compare jumps for fun. Yeah, I mean, if you look at his body, like, I mean, look at his body structure compared to yours, and like see how it compares. Like, maybe he has longer, like tendons in his from his ankles to his calves, or like maybe just his structure in general is different compared to yours. Nathaniel said, "How often do you stretch?" I'll stretch before every workout. Like I'll do either foam rolling or some type of dynamic stretching before every workout. I don't static stretch that much. I like to do some type of like more like ballistic stretching. So that's more like a bouncing type of stretch. When I do stretch. Um, so yeah, I have done yoga. I kind of not like stopped doing that, but I've kind of more incorporated ballistic stretching for yoga because I feel like it's just more apt for jumping to do ballistic type of stretching than the slow release type of stretching like with yoga. Joshua said he's very skinny but very agile and quick. Yeah, so I mean, if he's developed that speed and if he's been doing all that stuff since he was younger, then I mean that could be why it seems like he hasn't. That could be why it doesn't seem like he has to train at all to get the vertical he has. But Yeah, I feel like it's just more how his body has adapted to, like, what he's put it through up to this point. That's why, like Joshua, like you said, when you asked, do you feel like you can get, or you could reach a certain point by just trying to reach for it without doing any type of exercises. I feel like if you do it long enough, then you can. But like I said, that's where training comes in and can make it easier to get to that point. But that's not to say, that might be one of the big reasons why, your friend can jump that high, because his body has adapted over that amount of time to, like, the way that he jumped or the way that he moved. Um, so yeah, and that kind of, like I said, goes along with your question about, can you just jump to a certain point and maybe and reach it. Nathaniel, can you explain ballistic stretching again? So ballistic stretching is just more of like it's just bouncing type of stretches. So like if you're doing like a cat stretch would be like a ballistic stretch, like bouncing to like touch the ground to touch your toes, like that'd be like a ballistic type of stretch. Compared to like a dynamic stretch, which that's just more of like a moving stretch. So that'd be like, I feel like that's more of like a lunge. Like if you're trying to do a lunge before you actually do like a weighted lunge, or if you're like doing like hip opening exercises, like hip rotations where you bring your knee to your chest and like swing out, like that'd be like a dynamic stretch. But yeah, ballistic is just more of like bouncing type of stretches. I was gonna get some exercise here. Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much the difference between those two. And then static, like I talked about in the last Q&A, that's just holding a stretch for an extended amount of time, not really moving with it. So Joshua said it's more optimal to incorporate weights pretty much. Maybe not optimal, like maybe more efficient. So like if you want to get to a certain point and jumping faster, then that's where weights can help. But just working on technique and jumping in general like that, you could still get there. It just might take a little longer. Kakavo said, "Come on, look at those kids. They have no clue. Just tell them what to do. Give them a little workout guide or plan or something." I don't know. Like it's hard for me to just to say that there's one program that can work for everybody. It's just more of like, I mean, this is just where I'm at right now, and talking right now, it's just, I feel like it's just challenging yourself and looking at your weaknesses and strengthening those, to like just to continue to progress from where you're at. Because I feel like not everyone's going to be at the same place, so not everyone should start the same program. And that's just my take on it. But it just seems like it makes more sense to evaluate where you're at with your training and progress from there by pushing yourself in ways that you haven't yet, or that might feel more challenging for you than they might for somebody else. So that's my jump program right now. Loving all the questions, by the way. I don't think I've ever got this many questions on a live stream. Joshua, deadlifts or squats? I'm gonna have to go with squats. Just because of the load you can do with squats and like where it actually puts the load, like on your hips. I mean, they're both similar. Like they're gonna work similar things. Like you're using your body as a chain in both of them. But I feel like with squats, just the load on your hips and your glutes and hamstrings and whole body in general, I feel like it mimics jumping more than a deadlift. But they both, like I said, they're both similar. They both work similar movements. And I actually prefer. I probably right now I've been doing a lot more hex bar deadlift than straight bar. So would would pick hex bar deadlift over deadlift. Second part of that question, if you wanted to know that answer. But yeah, I'm probably gonna end the live stream soon. Like I said, thank you guys for all the questions. I'm gonna do another Q&A next week um on maybe 2 topics. One of those being the triphasic training, the periodization training, possibly 2, and then the does weight training stunt your growth question. Nathaniel, have I tried sumo deadlifts? I have, but that was back like it was back when I was doing bodybuilding exercises, so not since I've been doing vertical jump training. Joshua, so I was thinking of doing squats 2 times a week, one with moderate weight and one with heavy weight. What do you think? I mean, that could be a good split to do, Joshua, or you can even incorporate like a type of contrast and do you could do squats. You could do like heavy loaded squats, and then like right after you do a set of heavy loaded squats, do like a 30% like a 30% load and just do it faster, or even jump with the weight, like do like a jump squat. Or you can do like a something I think something I am thinking of doing is doing like a box squat with a heavy load, and then doing like a 30% and doing deeper squats but faster, like you're saying. For Guardy, what is your vertical? So the last time I tested it was like on that 10-8, 10-9 touch, and that would measure to be like 40, but I don't know, I don't want to say 40 in the until I like test it on like a Vertec or something. But yeah, that was the last time, or that was like the last measurement for like a running touch test. Between like 38. Yeah, I don't want to. 40 is like a big number, so I don't know. Not to say I didn't get 40, but it's just I want to get 40 multiple times before I say 40. So I'll say between 38 and 40 running. And Joshua said exploding with the moderate weight. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. I feel like of doing the moderate weight is just you can do moderate weight faster. For Guardy, what's your vertical? Joshua, like a superset or after doing your sets of heavyweight? Yeah, so like I mean I could just explain like what contrast training is, but so with contrast training, basically you do a heavy load movement, a body weight movement, um, like a body weight plyometric movement, and then you would do like a 30% weighted movement that mimics the 80 to 90% loaded movement that you did at the beginning. And then the last thing is an assisted movement with like a resistance band. And then that'd be one cycle. So that'd be like one set. So you do all those things pretty much back to back with like 30 seconds rest in between each thing. But then after each cycle, you take like a 2 to 5 minute break. See you later, CAC Vogel. Thank you for joining the live stream. So yeah, maybe not like a superset, but close to it, I guess. And I mean, with each thing too, you're doing like 2 to 3 reps in the 80, 90%, and then you're doing like no more than 4 reps in the 30% stuff. So that way you're putting like the most effort into each rep. No, Fergard, he said nowhere near 40. Hey, but as long as you're making progress, 40 could be a goal. Like a circuit. Yeah, kind of like a circuit, I guess you could say. But I mean, again, like it doesn't feel like a circuit because it's like, I feel like when you think of a circuit, it's like you're going to be tired out after. But with the contrast training, the whole point is to like feel powerful when doing the workouts. And then that's how I feel after doing those type of workouts. It's like I don't feel fatigued. I feel like worked. I feel like I worked, but I still feel like I could get a good jump in if I were to do it right after the workout. For Gary, that's good. Doesn't matter how slow the progress is, as long as you're going forward with the progress, not going backwards. Progress is progress. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end the live stream here. Stay tuned for that Q&A or 2 next week on those topics that we talked about in this Q&A. But I'm gonna do another one of these Q&As next Friday, which is just answering questions from the week from you guys. If you guys want to ask me any questions, you could message me on or DM me on Instagram at LikeMikeBarrins, or on you could just leave comments on YouTube. I'll look at those too and talk about them on these live streams. But I'm probably going to end it here. Stay tuned for more jumping, dunking videos too. I'm going to do a low rim session next to kind of show some trick dunks I'm working on. windmill definitely is going to be one of the next things I'd try on 10-foot. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm gonna post those videos, and see you later, Joshua. Let me know if in the next Q&A if you're in it, if you tried any of those workouts. But yeah, I'm gonna end the live stream here. Thank you guys all for joining and asking your questions, and I will see you guys later.